Training at home doesn't need to be expensive. Here's the $600 setup I use to train planche, front lever, handstands, pistols, and Nordics. First up is a pull-up station. I don't live around a lot of trees, so I need one of these to hang my rings. I'm 45 years old, so I like rings. They're a little easier on my shoulders. I got a cheap one off Amazon. It's the Bong Kim pull-up station. It cost me $152. I keep it outside, so I'm not really worried about it getting damaged. I looked at some other options like base bar and things like that, but double the price and didn't really think it was worth it. Pretty happy with this one so far. If you're in need of a set of rings and a place to hang them, you can get a combination version that comes with 32mm rings, straps, and then the pull-up station itself. It's about $170 off of Amazon. Pretty good deal if you ask me. So with that, I talked about rings. If you don't have them, you can get the Bong Kim rings that come with the pull-up station, or you can source them anywhere you want. I have a pair of Rogue rings from like 2012 that I still use. I did need to replace the straps a few years ago. Rogue rings are like $105, which I think is a little bit overpriced. There's a lot cheaper options out there. I'm a little picky in that I like the 28mm ring diameter versus the 32. But if you don't really care, and honestly it's not that big a deal, you can find them for way cheaper on Amazon, or like Thenx I think has them for like 40 bucks. All right, next up I use parallettes for the planche work, at least some of it. I do like to do the planche both on parallettes and on the floor, more just for a little variety and to keep my wrists strong. I don't want to have to play catch up if I'm only doing them one way versus the other. I have a set of travel parallettes from Tumble Track. They cost 70 bucks. I like these just because they pack down nice and small. I can throw them in a backpack when I'm traveling or in my suitcase and take them anywhere. I like them. They sit low to the ground, so if you need some elevation, I just use cinder blocks to put them on. There are a lot of adjustable ones. I think Base Blocks has a new one that's adjustable, but it doesn't pack down as small. Plus it's like 160 or 170 bucks, which I think is a little pricey, but that's just me. For planche work, levers, shoulder rehab, and some bicep and tricep work, as well as the Nordic curls as I'm kind of getting used to them, I use assistance bands. I got mine off of Amazon. I bought them from Wad Fitters. They seem to be a little bit better constructed than some of the bands I've had in the past from Rogue. And all my old ones had dry rotted, so I bought these recently. They were 75 bucks. Not the cheapest ones you're going to find out there, but they seem to be holding up well, especially since I keep everything outside. And they have 4 different resistance weights, which I don't know off the top of my head. Enough variety for me to tailor the support up or down depending on what I need. For lower body work right now, I'm doing mainly pistol squats with weight and Nordic curls, or at least a variation thereof. I have a Nordstick Pro that I bought quite a while ago. It was $40-ish when I purchased it. And I just took that system apart and bolted it to a pre-existing post that was in the ground. It was an old clothes drying rack, and I just drilled into it with a little support bracket, put some bolts and nuts through there, and it's nice and stable for me for the Nordics, which I really like. And then I can just attach the band around that vertical post and use it for some assistance when trying to do the full range of motion. Along with the Nordstick Pro, I use part of the slant bar stack from Tib Bar Guy. Again, not the cheapest thing. That whole system's like 160 bucks for 3 2-inch platforms that all stack on top of each other, plus the slant board. But I do get a lot of use out of it, and I think it's worthwhile. For the Nordics, I like to have my shins elevated and parallel to the ground so that I have enough clearance to keep my feet straight during the movement. So that's why I use those, and then I stack 2 pads for my knees just to give it some cushioning. Again, I'm 45, my knees are a little achy, and I don't love the way my patella feels, my kneecap feels when at full extension on the Nordic, if I don't have 2 little holes cut out into the pad. So to go with the slant board stack, I use the ProSource Fit Exercise Balance Pad. It was 30 bucks off of Amazon. I think I got the largest size, and I drilled 2 3-inch holes where my kneecaps go, so that way when I'm at the full extended position, I don't have a lot of unnecessary pressure on my kneecaps. I just didn't like the way that feels, and I find that the more comfortable I am when trying to do Nordics, the better the result. For the pistol squats, I use the actual slant board topper. I feel as though it puts it more on the quad. It's not necessary. You can just put your heel on a brick or something like that and you're fine. But I have it, so I'm using it. And I combine that with an old Mountain Tactical Institute sandbag that I bought, I don't know, 5 years ago. That was 70 bucks. And I just load that up with bricks and rocks and some change plates I have laying around. I found that a brick's about 6 pounds a piece. So as I go up in weight, I'm at around 15 pounds right now. A couple bricks plus a few extra rocks or some change plates. And I can scale up in a linear fashion without a lot of problem. To confirm the weight that I'm using, I just bought a cheap luggage scale from Walmart. It was like 12 bucks. And I just weigh the bag, make sure it's where I want, or at least close enough to, within a pound or so, and go to work. For handstands, I'm primarily working out on a gravel surface, so I had a piece of scrap wood lying around. It was a nicer piece of like cherry hardwood, that some of which I used for a different project, but I cut a piece. It's about 12 inches wide by 30 inches long, and sanded it down so it's nice and smooth. Put a little bit of the butcher block oil that we had sitting around for a cutting board on it, just to kind of treat it. And that's what I use for most of my handstands, which I'm doing before every workout, just to kind of keep it in the groove 4 days a week. The other piece of cheap or no cost equipment that I use that was lying around in the backyard is 2 cinder blocks. I use those for elevated handstand push-ups, planche work where I need those parallettes elevated, or I want to do elevated work for like planche push-ups or something like that. I don't know how much cinder blocks cost if you're buying them from the store. You definitely don't need them, but had them laying around and I find them useful, and they're nice and stable, and best of all, they were free. So all in, I'm at $620 with everything that I use on a weekly basis. I did not purchase all these things at once. Some of these items I've had for over 10 years, others, 5 years. The only thing I've purchased recently were the assistance band and the exercise pad for the Nordics. You definitely don't need all of these items. If you're gonna do like a bare minimum to start, you can either get a set of rings if you have a place to hang them, or the pull-up bar ring combination from Bon Kim on Amazon. That's about 170 bucks. Or you can do all these things on just a straight pull-up bar and save yourself a little extra money too. So you can just buy the Bon Kim pull-up station. It's $152, not including tax. I'm a little older. I find that my joints, especially my shoulders and elbows, appreciate using rings just because it gives a little bit more freedom of movement when I'm training, but your mileage may vary. On top of a pull-up bar or rings or some sort of combination, I would also recommend getting bands, a Nord stick if you don't have a place to do Nordics, some kind of padding for your knee, which can just be a rolled up towel, a yoga mat you have laying around, something to keep your knees happy during the eccentric portion of the Nordics. Piece of scrap wood for handstands if you're training those. If you don't have a piece laying around, you can go to like Lowe's or Home Depot, and they usually have a scrap wood bin, and you can get them for like $7, which I think I've done in the past. You definitely don't need the sandbag to do weighted Nordics. If you have a weight vest lying around, that's great. You can just use a backpack and load it up with random objects from around the house or the yard. I would get a luggage scale, or if you have a weight scale at home that you weigh yourself on, weigh yourself without the bag, weigh yourself with the bag. That gives you the difference, which is your working weight. And if you buy all of those things, depending on where you source them from, you're looking at about $300, but you can just piece it together over time. I don't think you need parallettes. It can kind of save your wrists, especially if you're doing a lot of planche work, but I like the variation of doing work on parallettes and also doing it on the floor. So that's my setup, and happy training.